This an all-out blitz. Real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast, brought to you by the Fan Battle Sports Network. I'm your host, as always, Matthew Briggs, and as with me, I got my amazing trio. First off, the space legend and the guy who will destroy you on Twitter. We got Mr. VT. How you doing?
What's going on, guys?
And always, guys, if you've been here, you know my ride or die, my A1 since day one. We got Mr. Crenshaw.
What's going on, everybody?
Guys, we got a special guest in the building. We had 2 of his co-hosts on. We had Figgy Fig. We had Landry on. Now we have Mr. John Lopez for the sweep. How you doing, John?
I am fantastic, boys. Happy to be here.
We're saving the best for last, right?
You're damn right you are.
Oh, man. So are you ready to talk some NFL news with us?
All you want, man. I mean,
right.
this is the time to do it. Everything's exciting right now.
Yes, sir. Well, all right. NFL news, I guess the biggest one, John. Do you think Hopkins is going to be a Titans after Sunday, or what's the deal with him?
I think the Titans are clearly, obviously interested, but I think he might. I think he might, not because necessarily that's the best, place for him or his preferred destination, but they got a shot. I mean, in their minds, I'm down on the Titans this year. I think they're going to fall apart, to be honest. But I think, from his perspective, where is a chance to get to the postseason? Where's a chance to maybe, capture that lightning in a bottle? The Jets don't seem interested. Everybody talks about the Chiefs and the Bills, but I mean, what's their interest? What's their level of interest? So I think DeAndre Hopkins is chasing a check right now, and I don't blame him. I might do the same thing in his position, but best money, best opportunity might be Titans.
What if you're a betting man, what would be the odds of him coming back to Houston?
0. Well, okay. Well, I probably shouldn't say 0 because there's always a chance. I'll say 5%. 5% chance. I think there's a lot of baggage there, and on both sides. I'm not dumping on DeAndre by any stretch, but I think it wasn't a nasty breakup, but once it was done, it was done. And a lot of times you're still amicable with that ex, but it was done, and it's not ever going to happen again. I think from his perspective, he was soured on Bill O'Brien, Jack Easterby, and a lot of people that are not here any longer. So there's maybe a little bit of attraction there. From the Texans' perspective, sure, if we can get him cheap, we might go ahead and do that, or at least kick the tires on it. But I think from the top down, not like it's a non-starter for DeAndre Hopkins from Cal McNair and Hannah McNair, but I think it's like, man, we've done that. He was good for us. He was great for us. But it's a new chapter, and you don't want to go back to the old one, that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So all the rumors from the Rockets podcaster and everybody else, just rumors, huh? There's no.
No, I think there's some validity to it, but keep in mind you got to realize who the source might be. The source might be DeAndre Hopkins, or one of DeAndre Hopkins' representative, or his agent. I'm not saying that they lied, when they said that he had some interest in the Texans. They're trying to create a market. Right. They're trying to create teams that can maybe even bid against themselves. If they think like, oh, the Texans are interested, he's interested in the Texans, all of a sudden the Texans start having a light bulb moment and say, you know what, let's give it a shot. Is there anybody else even interested? Maybe not. I think he's just creating a market, kind of elevating his own value.
Right. Okay. Crenshaw, I'll kick off with you. You think he's going to be a Titan by end of Sunday night?
I mean, no, I don't think so. It's kind of going against everything that they said he wanted, as a team to go to. I think if the Jaguars didn't get Calvin Ridley, I think that would have been the best team for him to go to in this division. But since they got Calvin Ridley to right now, I don't know where he should go. That who needs him? Maybe Dallas, but I don't think Dallas needs him. So I don't think he's going to Tennessee. I think, like John said, he just creating the buzz, creating the market, trying to get paid because he's at the back end of his career. He's still a great player, but he's still at the back end of his career. So I don't see him at Titans or Texans at all.
All right, BT, do you see a Tim Kelly, DeAndre Hopkins reunion?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, honestly, that he's going to be a Tennessee Titan unless they throw the bag at him. If someone's giving him the money, then I think almost anything else is secondary. So I don't think he's going to end up a Titan unless they give him like $20 million or something. That also depends what are his options. As John was saying, like, where could he go? At this point, he's been officially released for a while. And so you would have thought that, at least I thought that, half the league would have been like, all right, this is an elite receiver that is on the market now that was getting paid $28 million. We can get him at a discount now that he's actually been released. And that hasn't happened. And so what that tells me is that for whatever reason, teams are worried about adding him. And I think that that's the reason why, John, I believe you're right. I think that him and his team have created or trying to create a market for him because it was dry. And that's why we saw all this smoke about him coming back to Houston. I don't think we have a shot really at all getting him. I do think that Tennessee has a bigger shot of getting him than we do, but I don't think that's his ultimate destination.
One of the positives for Tennessee, you just hit on, Matthew. If he is just trying to cash a check, or if he thinks he can play 2 or 3 more years and signs a 1-year deal, where would you rather be? With a guy in Mike Vrabel who already knows you, knows how to deal with you, an offensive coordinator in Tim Kelly, who we have our scars from Tim Kelly, but D-Hop had his best seasons under Bill O'Brien and Tim Kelly. So maybe it's just like, you know what? I'll work here for a year. We've all been there, right? Like we want this super duper job, that we have this dream job out there, and it's not open yet, or they're not listening to us yet. You know what? I'm gonna work here for a while until the dream job comes open. So it's very conceivable that he signs a 1-year deal with Tennessee, puts up some good numbers in a familiar offense, probably this exact same terminology or very close, and elevates his value that way on the field.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. So he could be an intern for a year and then land a big gig.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you got step on a few grenades before, you get it in the clear. So I can see it. Let's moving on. John, do you play some Madden?
I used to play Madden with my kids, but man, I'm out on Madden, man. It's been a while. It's been a second, but I saw Josh Allen's going to be on the cover.
Do you think it's, do you agree with it, or should it have been somebody else?
One of those things, to me, I agree with it only because if you get an opportunity to be on the Madden cover, I don't care about any curses. I don't care about anything. You're gonna that's an incredible honor, first of all.
Right.
But secondly, I mean, Josh Allen is going to be in millions of households on the cover. When you grab that game, it's going to be Josh Allen. He's helping his brand. He's helping himself financially via marketing and other resources. Yeah, absolutely. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Okay. Crenshaw, what about you? What do you think about it?
Well, first, I haven't played Madden in about 12 years.
That's about me.
Yeah, Josh on the cover. I think he deserves it. Not from last year, just over the years. Every year he's gotten better. The team gotten better. Especially after that playoff game, his show got better after we beat him in the playoff game. So yeah, I think he deserves it. I don't see no wrong with it.
All right, BT. I know you're a Madden player, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I played Madden was 2 days ago. So I do think they put the wrong Josh Allen on there. We all know. If you know, you know. We for anyone that doesn't know, we have a Josh Allen that's on the AFC South Fan Battle Show, and his name is Josh Allen, and he's a Jaguars fan. So he's not. So he's the third Josh Allen that we talk about. So I just think that's funny. But no, I think Josh Allen definitely deserves to be on the cover. And you're right, Crenshaw. It's not about last year, because last year he kind of had a down year. I mean, if you're just looking statistically, if you're comparing to other quarterbacks, he had a great year. But for him, I say it was a down year because of the interceptions. He was hurt. He lost Dayball. I think that Bengals game was horrendous. So I think that there were certain things that you can pick out, and he didn't have great games. Even the Miami game, the Buffalo-Miami game was pretty bad too. But I think that he has gotten better. I think that's kind of what you want to see in a quarterback, a guy that you didn't even think that was going to keep his job. Coming from college, people were saying in 2018 and 2019, right? Is Josh Allen actually a franchise quarterback? And I think Burrow kind of surpassed him in terms of place. Like I think right now it's Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen. But even with that, I think he deserves to be there because he wasn't supposed to keep his job, and he's a top 5, and I would say top 3 quarterback. But if you want to argue that, he's at least a top 5 quarterback in the league, so definitely deserves to be there.
I think he was doing great last year until that injury. Like he was like the front runner for MVP until he got that elbow injury. I think that's what derailed him pretty quickly in the season, especially interceptions wise. After that injury, they went through the roof. I mean, if he was a pitcher, he'd be out for the season for Tommy John surgery. So it's a tough break. My opinion, I don't think anybody should be on the cover. I think it should be John Madden because, I mean, who better, the legend. Just pay respects to different pictures of John Madden. But that's just my opinion. It's not, can't go throw it very far.
Wasn't Madden on there last year?
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it can't be on there every year.
It's called Madden football.
His name is on it though every year, so you have to have a space on there.
I mean, come on, man. You got to pay dividends to the GOAT, right? So why not? In other news, Isaiah Rodgers got busted for gambling. They said over 100 times. And then there was some more news about Jameson Williams in the hotel room and not on campus when he made a bet. John, I kick off you. What is going to happen with all these bets? I mean, they're going to have to do something, right?
I think the NFL's overthinking this. They say you can't gamble when you're in the facility or in the stadium or on these grounds or here or there. I think they have a problem. Clearly they have a problem because people are people and they're going to want to gamble. I think if they just say you cannot bet on NFL games, period. Keep it simple. I saw a survey. I think it was Kalen Kaler from The Athletic surveyed some NFL players or was chatting with them. It was an informal survey, and most of these guys, she was asking them about the gambling rules, and they're like, I don't know. I think you can't do this. Maybe you can't do that because it's so convoluted. All you have to do is just say, put up a memo in every locker room. There is no gambling allowed on NFL games. To reiterate, any NFL game, you can't bet on it. And I think that clears up a lot because right now they're telling them you can bet here. You can go to a casino. You can do this or that, but you can't do this, and this. What all they're doing is getting in these guys' heads. They have so many things going on. Just keep it simple.
Yeah, I agreed on that one. VT, what about you?
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I made this argument on one of my Twitter spaces, and unfortunately, that's not what a lot of people believe. I believe that these rookies don't know what they're doing, what's right and what's wrong. It's and I'm not trying to make not okay anyone's other mistakes, but it is hard to know. Like, you can't bet on a college game if you're not even on campus. You're in a hotel that's bought for you by the team, but that's the time that you can't. But you could have if you were at your house. Like what the hell? We're not telling these dudes to do algebra here. We're having them play football. And honestly, who's going to keep up with all these rules? It should be simple. It should be, We want to make sure that there is no way in hell anyone could ever assume that you are playing football for monetary purposes other than your paycheck, right? So don't bet on anything in the NFL. Everything else should be up for up in the air. Go ahead and do whatever you want. The NFL gambling thing right now is the issue is that they're trying to walk this line where they're going to allow it in stadiums, but they don't want players to get involved. But the players are going to be involved just with the advertisements. So let them bet on college. John, I agree with you. I think it's a bunch of fooey. I think that Jameson Williams got the short end of the stick, and I think it's probably going to happen to a lot more rookies until they get this rule underway. And I'm not blaming I don't have any problems with what they did with Calvin Ridley because that actually made sense. But what they did to Jameson Williams, I'm not down with it.
Well, with Calvin Ridley, he was not playing football, period, when he made that bet, correct? Didn't he take his hiatus?
He was still in the NFL, even though he was on his highest not playing, but he was still technically in the NFL. He could have came back and played that game that weekend, right? So he wasn't outside the NFL. He wasn't retired. So he was technically still part of the NFLPA and had to follow those NFLPA rules. So I'm fine with what they did with him. It's just you can't say that we're trying to go hard against NFL gambling and then take a guy that was betting on college and then he was in a hotel room. How would he know in another state?
Exactly.
That had nothing to do.
Yeah.
I think that was ridiculous.
Kershaw, what about you? I know you be gambling.
No. My question, how did they find out about this? Do anybody know? Because I don't know.
Well, I'm sure some of it is just paper trail. Well, not paper, but you get the drift. Paper trail of where these bets have been made and by whom, and then you can find out or ask and investigate where they were. But I feel like if you're gambling on anything else, it should be open season. NFL, nothing, zero, and I think that keeps it simple.
Yeah, I agreed with you. All right, well, let's move on to OTAs. The stepping stone to training camp. John, I'll kick it off. I heard you like a certain receiver there.
Jesse Matthews.
Yes, sir.
How about old Jesse?
What do you like about him, man?
I like that D'Amico brought his name up unsolicited, man. I mean, could you imagine B.O.B.? Could you imagine Bill O'Brien saying, hey, what do you think about the rookies? He's usually talks about the position. Well, I think the receiver group is blah, blah, blah. I think the offensive line group is this or that. D'Amico mentioned, and we had some fun with it, to be clear, for the viewers here. But me being me, I actually dug around a little bit and talked to some folks over there this afternoon. But we were having mostly fun with it because he talked about C.J. Stroud, and then he talked about Will Anderson. And before he got to Juice Scruggs or Tank Dell or any of these other rookies, he said, we've got guys like Jesse Matthews, making the most of it, or however I'm paraphrasing, making the most of it, and making some plays. I'm looking at Landry and I'm going, Jesse Matthews. I mean, I had to dig in immediately and find out what I could about him. But I actually kind of nosed around a little bit. He's actually making plays in OTAs. Now, if I had to bet, I would say he would end up after preseason if this continues on the practice squad. I wouldn't think he'll take a regular season snap. But there's another story here that for me that resonates. This goes a long way in the locker room. This goes a long, long way in the locker room, I feel, because there are guys out there, whether it's first year, second year rookies, that are fighting for a job, and they're looking at each other going, man, Miko just shouted out Jesse Matthews. So he's watching us. Everybody is going to have a fair chance here. Obviously we know some starters are going to be plugged in, but if I'm that kid, or I'm another undrafted free agent, or I'm just a first or second year player trying to snare a job, I'm confident that this isn't just lip service. He is noticing what we're doing on the field, and it's not just like, yeah, that kid's good, we're going to cut him. It's like shouting him out, saying this if this kid keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to have a chance. And I think that resonates in the whole locker room.
Yeah. I've heard a couple of things, especially from BT, and he's catching my eye. BT, what do you think?
So I like the fact of what you said, John, that D'Amico is talking about someone that's unsigned because, like as you said, like Bill O'Brien would have never done that. So I do like that. What I find interesting is that at least from the fan perspective, we've been talking about bringing Hopkins. Some people have been talking about bringing Mike Evans. I know Crenshaw just talked a couple of minutes before the show talking about Kenny Galladay. And I mean, I don't know if people actually understand the point is that we have 13 receivers right now vying for about 6 spots. Mm-hmm. So and the thing is, we don't necessarily have a true wide receiver one or anything like that. If you can say that Robert Woods is that guy, but he hasn't been that guy for a couple of years. So we have 13 receivers. So I don't even know at this point bringing in just mid-tier other dudes. Like, what is the value of that? Like, there's a point where you don't see enough from other people that are already on the squad where you're now guessing because you're not giving anyone enough time to show what they can do. So I think 13 dudes on but we're probably going to keep 6 is what I'm assuming. And that means, about half are gone. How much time do you have to give to each receiver to see what they can do? I think we're pretty much done. Unless some miracle happens and we do get a Hopkins or an Evans or something, I don't see us just continually just adding receiver after receiver after receiver because it's time to actually see what these guys can do, in my opinion. And I think that is the story here, in my opinion, is that we've got a ton of dudes and a ton of question marks. And we really need to see if any of these dudes are going to be able to produce.
Kershaw, what about you?
John and VT pretty much said it all. I do like how he gave the guy a shout out because I didn't know who the hell the guy was until today.
Me neither.
I had to go and on YouTube and I see he has some good hands. I see that, But it's that that shows that the coach is looking at more than just the guys we know. He's looking at everybody. So because we're gonna need depth because these guys either gonna get hurt or they're not gonna show what they think they should show. But I like it. I like it. I want to see more of like Noah Brown. I want to see what he's doing. We don't really get to see much footage out there because they keep everything in a bubble. But I guess we got to wait to preseason for that. But so far, so good, man. And I'm with VT. We got 13 wide receivers, so it's not enough balls to get thrown around. Let's just throw them out there. Maybe we could be like what the Rams did that first year with Brandon Cooks and just all the guys just contribute and we have a good running game and win some games out there.
I think the other aspect of this, and it kind of dovetails off of what Crenshaw and VT said, is you only, because of the NFLPA, because of rules, you only have so many reps. There are only so many that you can even take. So if you're going to truly give these guys an opportunity, I would much rather have 11, 12, 13 in camp than 14, 15, or 16, because then you're not just cheating them, you're cheating yourself. So there's only so many reps that are going around. So if
watering down the reps where you can't.
If you come to grips with the fact that Robert Woods is our one, we like what Nico Collins is doing, we'll see. We'll find out about Noah Brown, and then it's open season after that. I mean, Mechie, obviously, there's some other guys, Tank Dell, that have advantages, but you want them all to have equal opportunity, not just for them to get a job, but for you to get it right.
Right. That's the big right. You need to get it right. The last couple of years, only winning 3 to 4 games, like it's enough. It's time to take a step forward, and that's the part that has to do it with.
Can I just bring up one thing here? Because Crenshaw brought up Noah Brown. I know Landry brought up Noah Brown. A bunch of people keep talking about Noah Brown, but I just want to quickly go over who Noah Brown is. He's a 7th-round pick. He was taken by Dallas in 2017. He was a 7th-round pick. He didn't get a shot until they traded Amari Cooper and a bunch of dudes got hurt. Then last year, he had one breakout game. That game was week 2, Cincinnati Bengals, 91 yards and a touchdown. But if you look at him, he's very inconsistent. The last 3 games that he was in, that he started in, he had a total of those 3 games, 22 yards. He had 12 targets and only caught 3 receptions. So he's incredibly inconsistent. And people are saying, look what he did last year. What did he do last year? Yeah, he had a great game. But what about those 3 ending games, right? These are games that are important. You're trying to make a playoff run and stuff like that. And he just didn't catch anything. So before we start saying that Noah Brown is a good wide receiver too and stuff like this, and like I'm gonna shout out to my guy Xavier Hutchinson, man. Xavier Hutchinson, I think, is just a huge play. I know we're gonna talk about it in a moment, but I really don't see the opportunity for Noah Brown, just given that this is it's going to be his 6th year. He hasn't shown what he can do in 6 years. I'd rather focus on a rookie. That's my take on Noah Brown.
So all you're going to talk about is those last 3 games, not the first 6 games, and the middle of the season when he was doing pretty good. I mean, everyone's not going to have a good game all the time, but I get it. 6 years, he should show more and everything, but he doesn't get the opportunity. Maybe they didn't see the potential that he has.
But, I mean, of the 3 touchdowns he had last year, 2 were in 1 game. So aside from like the Bengals game and that other game where he had 2 touchdowns, he didn't do much. Like, that's the thing that I'm saying. And listen, I don't want to shit on Noah Brown because he couldn't make the squad. It's not like I'm shit on him. I'm just saying that I think people think very highly of Noah Brown because he's in the NFL already. And a dude like Xavier Hutchinson is a 6th-round pick, and people are already diminishing what he could potentially do. Because in my opinion, Xavier should have been a 3rd or 4th-round pick with the skill set that he had. And people are really just not even thinking about what he can do. In my opinion, he can easily be a wide receiver too at the end of the season.
John, I guess what do you think about that back and forth between Crenshaw and?
I think you have to first of all identify what you're going to be and what you want to be in 2023. Do you want to try to win 7-8 games and maybe make a little noise in the division if you think that would be enough, or do you want to just take the next logical step? So you can tell where I'm leaning. I'm leaning taking the next logical step. That means opportunities for young players if it's a tie. But don't cheat your team out because, again, it resonates in the locker room. If Noah Brown is the clear starter, or contributor, whatever you want to call it, then he plays. But if it's a tie, I think then you should lean toward the younger players. I do like Xavier Hutchinson a lot. I do think he's one of those guys that you won't see the speed necessarily at the combine or his pro day, but he gets yards after catch. He not only people talk about catch radius and high pointing and all that, and all these little fancy catchphrases that people use to make themselves look smart. I look at what he did on the field. I look at what he did on the field. He would catch a ball against Texas, Oklahoma, really fast defenses, a lot of pros on these defenses, and he would have. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm thinking like it was like 14, 15 yards after catch sometimes. That's what I like about him. So. And that goes back to my other point. Let's get him some reps. Let's see what it counts, what it looks like when he has every opportunity to win the job.
Yeah, agreed. John, you said something about D'Amico just calling out people, saying some great things. He said something about Juice Scruggs, and he says that Juice already looks like a vet. Does that impress you, or you still need to see more before you buy in?
It's hard to tell because I think D'Amico Ryans is very sincere. A lot of coaches just say catchphrases and lip service because they don't want to dump on a rookie. So we're going to find out. We're going to find out if he runs with the ones when we get to training camp, if he gets into the starting lineup as right out of the chute in preseason. Because if you're going to use him in the regular season, it's not like other positions where you can alternate reps. The offensive line needs to be out there as a group, as the number ones together all the time that you can make it, as often as possible. So we're going to find out.
You need that.
Yes, exactly. And to be able to fit together and all that. I will say this is the offensive line to me, just my opinion, is where when you play in a big conference, it really matters. Like whether it's Tank Dell or hell, Josh Allen, other positions you can come if you have the skill set, if you have the things that you can see on film, no matter the competition, you can translate to the NFL and maybe develop some quicker than others. Offensive line, if you're playing at Penn State and you go from Michigan to Wisconsin to Iowa to Ohio State to Purdue, to go down the list of these big defensive lines in the Big Ten, then you're on to something. Because they may not all be pros that they're facing, but those are big dudes that you have to use your leverage, you have to use your angles, you have to use the quickness, to be able to pop out of your stance. So I think offensive line, it helps to play in a big conference like he did.
Yeah, and to me, I'm probably the most hype about offensive line than I've been in a long time. Probably I want to say probably since like 2011, 2010. Like this is probably the first time that I'm actually excited about our offensive line. They're like, oh god, here we go again. Crenshaw, what about you? What do you think?
About the O line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the O line is way better than what we had the last 3 years. Um, you know, the juice guy, yeah, like John say, I need to see, if he's running with the ones. Actually, I need to see him in a preseason game. I need to see, is he going to get pushed back? Is he making the right reads? Because he's like the most important guy on the offensive line. So I need to see, can he really handle that position? But he can't be no worse than Quincyberry. I don't think he get no worse than that right there. So,
don't be talking about BT's boy like that. Right?
I'm just saying, can't get no worse than that. But I think getting Shaq Mason is going to help out him anyway. So I'm excited about the offensive line. I'm hoping they can at least be a top 15 line, and protect the quarterback, because I don't need him having happy feet. I need him to have a good rookie season. I don't need to have a David Carr rookie season. I don't need that at all.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I think if I'm remembering this right, 2009 until 2012, the Texans' offensive line was almost identical for 4 straight years. It was Dwayne Brown, it was Chris Myers, it was Wade Smith. It was, just go down the line. I think there might have been one change in there, but it was pretty much the same offensive line for 4 straight years. They have not had the same 4 guys, much less 5 guys, in the offensive line since then. We're going on 11 years. Just getting 5 dudes that can play together, which goes back to the point of getting them the reps right away with the ones. To be able to have an offensive line that is signed up, I want to say through 2027, everyone on the offensive line, the projected offensive, outside of Titus Howard, who we expect to get an extension, are signed through 2027. That's a huge win if they can play. If they're just manageable, if they're just serviceable,
that's
to be able to have these
right
guys
there.
for 3-4 straight years, that's a win.
Yeah. BT, I know you're high on Quisenberry, so what's your?
Yeah, my nemesis Scott Quisenberry should not see a snap. And obviously, I've talked about the O-line a lot in the offseason, even during the season. And so I think at this point, Juice Scruggs has to be that guy, because if he's not, we're going to have serious issues. So basically what D'Amico said, I don't know if he's saying that he's a vet based on his playing ability necessarily or his character, because he was a team captain. He went through a lot of adversity. He broke his back, and had to come back hard, rehab, and he came back out being a starter, got voted team captain. So in that aspect, I would say that he's a vet just because of what he's already been through in his short career, in collegiate football. And I think that he is going to be looked at in terms of being an important part of this O-line. We know that we had the worst center in the league last year, and he is going to replace him. And so we know that he is that critical. I'm hoping that Juice Scruggs is that guy. When we did our live stream and we saw that they took Juice Scruggs and they didn't get JMS or they didn't get Whippler or any of the guys that we talked about, like in Twitter spaces or in our conversations, I never once brought up Juice Scruggs. He was never on my radar.
Same.
The first time I started talking about him was when he was drafted. And there were like 4 guys that we were talking about, of centers that we were, maybe even 5, when we were talking about who should actually be on the squad. So my question mark is because I didn't know the guy until so much. Like I wasn't watching a lot of Penn State games. So the bottom line is that he has to be that guy, because if he's not, we're going to have problems. And I know you didn't ask this question, but my major concern is not even just Juice Scruggs, it's Kenyon Green. Kenyon Green is hurt. He has that same knee injury, and I believe he also has an additional shoulder injury right now. So he's dealing with a knee injury that he already had and a shoulder injury, which he also had. I know he had also a concussion last year. My problem is that he wasn't very good last year. He was essentially one of the worst guards in the NFL last year, aside for like a 4-game stretch. And he's not able to go to camp. I believe that this O-line, particularly Juice Scruggs and Kenyon Green, are going to hold the card. They're going to be the key players to C.J. Stroud's development. If these 2 players aren't performing, I want to know what this team is going to do to make sure that CJ Stroud's protected. Because if he's not protected, honestly, it's going to look a lot like James Mills out there. We know that CJ Stroud actually struggled under pressure. He went from 72% to 40% when he was under pressure. And if two dudes on the line aren't able to keep that protection up, I unfortunately think it's going to be a line like a line and an offense that we saw last year. So that's my real question.
John, what do you think about that?
I think this is where Bobby Slowick comes in, and it's incredibly, incredibly important. I can tell you, just knowing the Kubiak offense, the Shanahan offense, and what Kyle Shanahan and Slowick did in San Francisco, there was a reason Brock Purdy was good. I know people say, well, they brought in McCaffrey and he had Ayuk and he had all these receivers and all these weapons, et cetera. That offense is predicated on one thing more than anything else, and it helps the offensive line. Like, it could not help the offensive line more. And that is, you got 3 reads. You got 2 or 3 reads in a given play, okay? So once you plant that back foot, if you don't see your first guy, your first option open, you go immediately to second. You don't do what a lot of hardened NFL quarterbacks do, and that's maybe bide a little time, maybe step up in the pocket, maybe roll out and try to get your best receiver the ball if that is the best receiver. What you do is you put that, once that back foot hits and he's not open, boom, you go to second. So we're talking about anywhere from 2.5, 2.7 to 3.4 seconds maximum that the ball has to come out of his hands. So that's why I feel pretty dang good about them not being able to just pummel CJ Stroud. I think Bobby Slowick is going to help the offensive line. This is not news to him. He did it with Purdy. I mean, he did it with a lesser talent, if we're being honest. And I think the fact that CJ Stroud processes so quickly, and that's one thing that we can all agree on that has been talked about him, he will absorb that and he will do that. Now, sure, there's going to be some plays here and there where he maybe gets a little greedy or sees something or it's a 3rd and 19 and he knows he's got to get 19 yards, so he's not going to go check down to his second guy, and he might dance around, might get hit, whatever. He's going to get sacked. But I think the offense is going to help that offensive line keep CJ Stroud upright.
And plus, the big thing, zone blocking. I think the zone blocking is going to help Green tremendously, and in any rookie as well. And like I've always say when we talk about Green on the show, is that guard position has to rely on the center position a lot. And let's be, you said it, Questenberry was trash last year. So, I mean, that kind of did not help his case. So I think it's going to be this is the prove it year if he comes back healthy. So, John, we have a fan favorite segment of the show. It's where we ask you some questions. You cool with that?
All you want, baby.
All okay. All right, you asked for it.
I'm open for it.
All right, VT, I'll let you go ahead.
So this isn't a football question. This is actually a fishing question.
All right.
One of the things.
That's a. I can't point right. There you go. That's a 30-inch trout right there. That was my first 30-inch trout.
Wow. So all right. So one of the things that I did, and I got really happy when I learned about this trick, and I was going to like Stop and Shop, and I'm from Connecticut, like so I'm from the Northeast, so that's where you'll hear all these things I talk about, stuff that's not even down in Texas. But so I went to Stop and Shop, and I heard this thing of just go and ask the butcher for a carton of duck liver, and so that's what I did. I took all this duck liver, I took cheesecloth, and I put the duck liver, I tied it up, and I went to a lake. And I caught a catfish, and it wasn't like bait that I bought. I basically spent $2 for a bucket this big, and I caught catfish. And I want to know, what is like some stupid little trick like that helped you catch crazy good fish that not many people really realize?
Oh, that's a good one, man. That's a great question. I'm not a freshwater guy. I've done my share. and any stink bait will catch catfish. But I'm a saltwater guy. Okay, so I go bay fishing. I've been bay fishing everywhere. But my go-tos have been Sabine Lake up near the Texas Louisiana border, East Matagorda Bay, and right now I'm fishing a lot down in Aransas Pass. One of the things, and I get a hard time on my podcast. I got the Bite Me podcast, the fishing podcast that I do every week. I get a hard time from the captains that I'm with. Okay, so there's all kinds of signs that are obvious. Birds working, and I don't know how much fishing you guys do, but I'm sure a lot of your viewers or listeners do. Catching fish under working birds, seagulls that are diving. That means they're diving for bait. It's easy. Slicks. When a fish regurgitates after and they're feeding, it creates a little oil slick on the very top. Those are the basic things. Tide movement, all that stuff. But one thing I learned about probably 25 years, maybe longer ago, like when you're on a bay, and there's a bunch of ducks on the water, just literal ducks on the pond, literal ducks on the bay. And you see them there for a long time, more than like 5 or 10 minutes, like say 15, 20 minutes. They're just sitting there because that's what ducks do. I would putter underneath the ducks, and a lot of times they would fly away, sometimes not all the way. And I would start casting underneath the ducks. And that is one of the most not talked about easy ways to catch trout and redfish, because it's the life cycle. Ducks sitting for 20, 30 minutes in a single spot. What do? They poop, and so there's all this in the water that brings the little algae and the little shrimp and all the little critters. And what does that do? That brings big fish in to eat on them. So that's one of my, I've only really had that opportunity maybe 10 or 12 times where I could see them. I'm fishing somewhere else and I could see the ducks over here, and I putter over there after they're sitting there for a while, but it works every time.
Awesome. All right.
Duck poop.
Crenshaw, what about you?
I guess I could say, what's your best Texas A&M moment and your best radio moment, whether it's 610 or the other station, and how did you come up with the OG sauce?
Oh, those are good ones. So my best Texas A&M moment, not to be too self-serving here, but as a student, it was awesome getting to know. I was at the battalion, the school newspaper. Jackie Sherrill came in and was a head coach, and for some unknown reason, I hit it off with Jackie, and I got a lot of really good stories and such from him. But we really have become friends. We became friends, and we've been friends for whatever that is now, going on 35 years. And so it was great to become one of Jackie's best friends, and he comes over and all that. And then all the usual hijinks that we don't necessarily need to go into. But Kevin Murray, Kyler Murray's dad, when he started, he and Craig Stump, and I think Craig Stump is at Atascocita still as the head coach. I started covering the Aggies as a beat in school, and then I became I graduated and started working in Bryan and then San Antonio, and became the Southwest Conference beat writer. Some of your listeners don't even know what the Southwest Conference is. And the Aggies won 5 straight conference championships and beat Texas 7 years in a row when I was covering them. Oh, wow. Doesn't get better than that.
No, not at all.
But the absolute best, and this is the self-serving part, I'm looking at it right now. They gave me a copy. I got inducted this past about 6 months ago into the Texas A&M Hall of Honor.
So awesome! Congratulations.
That would be the best one. OG sauce is an interesting story. I'll get back. I can't remember your second part of your question, but OG sauce. So I've been making this stuff because I cook like crazy. If I'm not fishing, I'm cooking. I mean, I cooked like last week. I cooked some awesome dino ribs for the family. So I've been cooking for my entire life. I mean, even when I was like 14 years old, my dad and I, and usually it ended up being me, was like the holiday cook, barbecue. So I've been cooking my whole life. So I started entering a few little charity cook-offs, tournaments, barbecue cook-offs, and I was like, it just isn't right. The glaze that I put on my whole chickens whenever I was cooking them for the competitions. So I started making my own sauce, tinkered with it 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it was, finally got it the way I wanted, and just started making these for gifts, Christmas, whatever, take them to the office, give them to people. And one of my friends is Rick Martin, who's the owner of Texas Star Grill Shops. And about 2 years ago now, I gave him a couple of bottles of homemade, in the pot, stirring, all that, the way I made it, and just as a gift. And the next time I saw him, he looked at me and his eyes got white real big, and he goes, "I can sell this shit." So I said, all right, people have asked me for years, I should bottle it, I should sell it, blah, blah, blah. So that was the push I needed, because he guaranteed me that he would put it in all 5 of their stores if I made it. And he did, and it's their number 1 selling sauce right now. And what was the second part that you asked me?
Well, before you ask you, we got a question from the group.
Yeah.
Does OG sauce pair better with Jaguar or horse meat?
OG sauce could make your shoe taste good.
Good answer.
Go ahead, Chris.
Now I said, what was your best radio moment? Where the 610 or the station before? What's your best moment?
Oh, man.
Besides coming on the Texans Fan Battle podcast.
Yeah, of course. Everything else is battling out for second. My best moment, like if I had to put particular things on it, I could come up with 100 things. My best moment is just the just feeling really incredibly lucky. I a little backstory. I was a columnist for the Houston Chronicle for 17 years. And then my wife and I were sitting around one day, and I was doing radio some already, kind of part-time, and they had asked me if I wanted to go full-time. They liked what I was doing or whatever. And I looked at my wife, and I'll never forget it. I said, "You want to bet on ourselves?" Because I had a really good job. I mean, I was established. I was the number 1 columnist, all that stuff, covering all these games. And I said, let's bet on ourselves here, because I thought this internet thing might take off. This was 2006. So I knew newspapers might take a hit with this little World Wide Web that we talked about. And so we did. I did, and started doing radio. But the best moments for me, there's a lot of individual hilarious moments or real telling moments or interviews that we've had and all that, is just working with the people that I worked with. I mean, to be able to come in from the other station and do radio with one of my best friends to this day, Mark Vandermeer. I mean, you can't beat that, and then Mark goes full time with the Texans or takes that title with the Texans. And I'm like, all right, we'll see what happens. And they brought in Nick Wright on a whim, basically, because he's so talented, from Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And Nick was just incredible. I mean, he's still, again, to be able to do radio with a true friend. I mean, he came to my son's wedding in New York in March, and it was really, really cool. And then everybody, before and since, I've never had a bad partner, never had a guy that wasn't a friend. But be able to hit the ground running like that was probably the best moments.
Awesome. Well, since Crenshaw stole my question about the OG sauce, sadly, I live up here in Sucksville, Kansas City, and everybody claims that they have the best barbecue, which I don't got it top 4. John, besides Texas barbecue, which one do you think is the best barbecue and why?
I may piss you off. Outside of Texas barbecue, because I hate. Okay, this is the cook in me coming out. I hate.
I'm a cook too, so I
hate heavy vinegar sauces like Carolina, like Memphis. I think it tastes like. Well, I don't even want to say, but and then there's some other areas that have mustard-based sauces. Mm-hmm. I don't like mustard-based sauce. It's a mood to me. Every once in a while, I'll be in a mood for a mustard-based sauce. Let's not kid ourselves. Texas is clearly, because we're beef eaters.
Right.
It's clearly number 1, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible. But Kansas City knows how to do it with their light ribs and porks and all that. Here's one that may be a curveball for you guys. Don't sleep on California, man. A California barbecue, especially tri-tip, like they do tri-tip, which is basically the tip of the brisket. Mm-hmm. And they do more grilling. They go hot and fast. Man, I'm getting too much in the weeds here. They go hot and fast instead of low and slow like we do down here. Mm-hmm. But when you go hot and fast, you sear it and it seals it. California barbecue is really, really good. It might be my number 3.
Oh wow. Okay. See, I'm not a big fan of sausage. Besides, down Texas.
Yeah.
But I just love the way Memphis, like you said, the way Memphis slow cooks. The different types of wood and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I have to go Memphis number 2 in mine.
Yeah,
But
that's good, man.
I
But
agree
they're
with
more
you.
pork too.
Yes, I love brisket. Don't get me wrong, but something about pork, man,
Yeah.
it puts me in the food coming. I'm okay with it.
You and me both.
So, guys, y'all have any other questions for John before we let him go?
The only question I'm gonna have is, I gotta ask, what was yours and Landry's biggest disagreement to date?
Biggest disagreement to date. Well, what day is it? I mean,
That's good. That's a good one.
the best thing about Landry, and I could not be more candid about this. The best thing about Landry is he's not the opposite of me, because we have a lot of common interests. But what he does is he knows to take the other side sometimes, not just for the sake of taking the other side, but more as a kind of, all right, well, what about this? Let's challenge everybody on everything. So the challenge you get from each other, like he'll challenge me and I'll challenge him, and sometimes it goes too far. I mean, yeah. Sometimes it goes too far. Well, too far in a radio sense.
Right,
it's not like
right,
we've ever
right.
actually had like a real, whatever fight or argument like that lingers. But that brings a lot of heat and energy to the show. So that's when I said, like, what day is it? I'm really only half kidding, because we go in there and all of a sudden, it's like you're challenging him, and then he, he likes to tweak me and tease me about this or that. And so I got to push back. I like, how many times you heard me say, no, Landry, that's incorrect. No, Landry, that is not true. No, Landry, what I really said was this, but he's pushing and I'm pushing back.
Gotcha. All right.
Chris, you got anything? Or are you good?
That's about it.
Well, John, Landry is BFS with BT and always gives him a radio shout out all the time. I'm gonna have to become BFS with you, so you can give me a shout out. So that way, BT.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
Do they call you Mark?
Matt.
I thought he said Mark earlier. I was like, did I mess something up? Because I heard VT say, I thought it sounded like Mark. So you want to go by Matt, not Matthew?
Either one. It's not late for dinner. Either one.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So if we're gonna be BFFs, I got to know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because I mean, it'd be kind of hard. Like, Mark, who's Mark? Like,
I'll give you all the nicknames so you can call me any one of them. When I was in high school, they called me Whopper, because I had a skyhook like Billy Paltz, who you don't even know. I had a left-handed and a right-handed skyhook, and the kids, especially when I loved it when the girls called me Whopper because it meant more. In high school, they called me Whopper. Everybody's called me J-Lo my whole life. Obviously, I've been called the OG as far back as like 2000 and I want to say 2004 when I was coaching basketball. All the players called me OG. And it's always been that. And then, what's my other? I had another nickname somebody called. Well, anyway, you can call me any of those.
So here's a funny story. These guys don't know. When my mom was pregnant with me, she had to have emergency C-section, and so she was on high pay meds. Mm-hmm. And my name is Matthew Bryan. Well, when she spelt it MATCHEW. And my middle name, BRAIN. So my name was almost Matthew Brain. If it wasn't for my aunt. So my family still calls me Chewy to this day.
That's a good nickname. That's a great nickname.
Chewy, yeah, that's a good nickname.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I do got one more then.
Yeah.
What's the first dog you ever had?
Gibson. Now, we've had dogs, but it was kind of like family dogs. We had a Cocker Spaniel named Rupert. We had a poodle that my wife had. We've had some smaller dogs as well. But I've always liked either the kids or whatever. So in 2009, my oldest son was in college already at A&M. My other two were in high school. And my wife thought, you know what? He's going to need a fishing buddy, a barbecue buddy. And so, excuse me, they gave me Gibson, and he was found on the street. He was at the Harris County Pound, and he was only 6 weeks old. And you're not supposed to really, adopt until 8 weeks. So they had to wait a little bit. It ended up being Christmas Eve. They gave me Gibson. He was this big, and I'm sitting there. And every Christmas, we had an old friend who's passed now that was a Hollywood agent, and he's actually Cher's godfather.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, he was big time in Hollywood. So
That's
we would go
crazy.
to his house on Christmas Eve, and he always drank vodka Gibsons. And so I would always have a vodka Gibson with him. And so ever since we met him in the early 90s, I've been drinking a vodka Gibson as my preferred drink on Christmas Eve because of Tony. And to this day, on Christmas Eve, I'm always drinking vodka Gibson. So we're sitting there like, what should we name this dog? And it's my first dog ever, really. And I'm a grown-ass man with kids in high school and college. And I'm like, I don't know. And they were giving me all these suggestions, and I just looked at my little glass, and I went, Gibson. So everybody thinks he was named after a guitar. No, he was named after a drink, baby.
Hey, he's your grilling buddy, right? You got that,
Grill, man, how many adventures have he and I had? It's incredible.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. We're going to have to do this again.
Just let me know.
And I definitely need to get some of that OG sauce so I can sell these people up in Kansas City what it's all about.
Show them what it's about. They will. I'm blown away by how much people like it, man. It's. I had somebody texting me today. Actually, you may know her. She used to work as a comedian, and she's been doing a bunch of stuff in California. But anyway, she's a stand-up comic. And she says, I sent her like a case of OG sauce when it first came out because she's a good friend. And she goes, yo, out of the OG sauce. I said, all right, I'll help you out.
Yeah. Well, John, why don't you tell our listeners where we can find you and what you got cooking, especially on that fishing podcast?
It's called Bite Me, a saltwater fishing podcast. It's on all the streams, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We have a group page on Facebook. It has almost 9,000 members already. And so you can find it via that. Obviously, OG sauce is at all the Texas Star grill shops. Fingers crossed on one more thing that might happen here in the next month or so. I was asked by HEB to enter their Best in Texas competition with the OG sauce because one of their executives, I gave him a bottle. He's also a friend. And he said, I can't put this on the shelves, but you better damn well put it in the contest. So I entered in the contest, did the video, all that stuff, all the information they needed, where it's bottled, all that stuff. So if I make the finals, I should find out here in the next month or so. So that's exciting. OG Sauce at Texas Star Grill Shop and Ace Hardware in Atascocita and Kingwood, a couple of other little places. And of course, in the Loop every day to 10 to 2.
All right. Crenshaw, where do we find you at?
You can find me at Fifth Ward Crenshaw everywhere, and I will be picking up a bottle of OG sauce tomorrow in spring. I will pick up a bottle.
Not a baby.
Hey, Bob, get two and send me one my way.
I got you.
BT, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brown Chubby Bear. You can find my articles at fanbattlesports.com. My last article is all about the receiver situation. I actually talked about the fact that we have 13 receivers and there's only 6 spots and what they all look like and kind of updates from OTA. So check out fanbattlesports.com. Me and Leo have spaces pretty much 3 or 4 times a week. So follow me at Brown Chubby Bear or follow Leo at Leo is Forgiven. And if you want to argue some Texans football, we are your guys.
All right. And guys, you can find me at A1 Day 1 Texans. You also will find me on the AFC South Fan Battle Podcast, where we have Fox Sports writer for the AFC South, Ben Arthur, on there. He's going to help me tell the Jaguars, Colts, and Titans that they all suck and the Texans reign supreme. And guys, check out the website, www.fanbattlesports.com. You can find some amazing articles and all other podcasts. And again, John, thanks for coming on. Don't tell Landry. Tell Landry VT said this. You are the better one to have on the show.
All right. That might be the first thing I tell him.
Well, till then, everybody have a good night. We'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Thanks.
This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for 3.